6 p.m. Coverage you can count on.
New at 6, we know more about the 2 Atlanta police officers killed in a helicopter crash.
The aircraft struck one of the tops of one of the power poles. The cockpit and the fuselage were consumed for the most part by a post-crash fire.
The chopper went down at a busy intersection with dozens of people nearby.
I heard a loud crash.
It was on fire. It was no way I could get to him or try to pull anyone outside.
It was devastating to the point that it could have been my life. It could have been a lot of people's lives.
Good evening, I'm Craig Lucy.
And I'm Aaron Coleman. We first reported the helicopter crash moments after it happened last night as breaking news.
And just a few hours ago, the Atlanta Police Department released the names of the officers who died when that chopper went down. 48-year-old Officer Richard J. Halford joined the force in 1986.
Also on board, 40-year-old Shawn Smiley. He joined the department just 2 years ago. Witnesses say they saw the helicopter fall from the sky and hit power lines near Martin Luther King Jr. and Hamilton E. Holmes Drives around 10:30. It's just south of I-20 where Southwest and Northwest Atlanta meet. Channel 2 Action News is bringing you live Team 2 coverage. We begin with Channel 2's Carl Willis, who has new information about this investigation. Carl.
Well, that's right. Last night, we were one of the first news crews on scene after this police helicopter came crashing down in the roadway here behind me. Now, you can still see the evidence of the fire where the wreckage landed in the roadway. Around 1:30 this morning, the Atlanta police chief told us that the NTSB would be investigating just now. That agency filled us in on where their investigation stands right now. The scene has only been cleared for a few hours.
We're looking at the man, the machine, and the environment.
But investigators with the National Transportation Safety Board tell us they believe they know what caused an Atlanta police helicopter to come crashing down near the intersection of Martin Luther King Jr. Drive and Hamilton E. Holmes Drive.
And at some point during the flight, the aircraft struck one of the tops of one of the power poles around us right now.
Officers Richard Halford, 48 years old, and Shawn Smiley, 40 years old, were killed. They had been called out to help in the search for a missing child. I found one witness in the crowd of onlookers who said she saw the helicopter as it fell, hitting power lines along the way.
It hit the power line and it hit the ground. I jumped out of my car and I ran because I was really close to it.
Investigators say the cockpit and fuselage were consumed by a post-crash fire.
All the major structural components of the aircraft, as far as we know right now, have been accounted for. We have the tail rotor, all the main rotor blades, the engine is intact, the main rotor transmission is intact, and so we'll be going through those pieces and parts in the days to come.
Now, amazingly, no one else was injured here on the ground. Up here above me, you can see that the power lines and cables that the helicopter hit have been restored. Georgia Power says the 1,200 customers who lost power have been restored. For now, the NTSB tells us they will now focus on witness statements, securing APD's maintenance records on the helicopter, and working with specialists from the aircraft and engine manufacturers. They say their investigation could take 6 to 9 months. Reporting live in Northwest Atlanta, Carl Willis, Channel 2 Action News.
This evening, the Atlanta Police Department is remembering the officers killed in that helicopter crash, and we're learning new information about the fallen officers. Channel 2's Eric Phillips continues our live Team 2 coverage from Northwest Atlanta. Eric.
Well, Aaron, right here behind me, you can see the traffic is flowing smoothly here, but no one can really forget what happened here less than 24 hours ago. When we came here this evening, there was an APD officer here. I had a chance to speak to him. I said to him, you know, how are you guys holding up after this? And he simply said, one day at a time. Tonight, we know more about those 2 officers who had a combined 28 years of experience with the Atlanta Police Department. Officers have been showing up at the scene where their comrades lost their lives. You can see the look of hurt in their faces. A few teddy bears, a balloon, and flowers stand in the foreground of this horrific helicopter crash. And now we know more about the 2 APD officers who lost their lives. Officer Richard Halford was 48 years old, and he had been with APD since 1986. He had been with the air unit for more than 16 years, serving as a pilot. He was the father of one 21-year-old daughter. Officer Shawn Smiley was 40 years old and had joined the Atlanta Police Department in 2010. He had been with the air unit since just earlier this year, serving as a tactical flight officer. He leaves behind a wife and 3 children, ages 5, 7, and 9. The Atlanta Police Department is coordinating grief counseling for the families and the co-workers of these 2 officers killed in the line of duty. Chief George Turner summed it up in the hours following the crash.
The loss of an officer is probably the most difficult thing a chief of police can be to have to deal with, and magnify that twice. It's a very difficult time for not just me, but the entire Atlanta Police Department.
Back live now here in Northwest Atlanta. Through the Atlanta Police Department, the families have asked that we give them some time to breathe and to grieve. So we've chosen to honor that request, and we've not reached out to the families of either one of these officers at this point. There have been funds set up at Wells Fargo Bank to benefit the families, and those who want to support them can start making donations as soon as tomorrow. Live tonight in Northwest Atlanta, Eric Phillips, Channel 2 Action News.
Such a difficult loss, not for the families, but also for the entire community as well. Eric, thank you. The officers were flying a 1967 Hughes model OH-6A helicopter powered by a Rolls-Royce engine. The chopper belonged to the Atlanta Police Department.
And as we mentioned, police were searching for a missing child when that helicopter crashed. Channel 2's Tony Thomas is live at the scene where he spoke with the boy's mother. And Tony, she wants to send a message to the officers' families.
Yeah, that's right. She is heartbroken. She says last night she couldn't imagine anything getting any worse. Then she heard all those ambulances rushing to the scene. She says this back here will be a painful spot forever.
I just want to tell their families I'm so sorry.
Amir Shakir Fulford stands and cries, looking out over the darkened pavement where the Atlanta police helicopter crashed. Saturday night, her heart ached because her young son was missing. Today, she cries for those who died searching for him.
And I just feel so responsible for it because my child ran away.
Amir says she called police Saturday after 9-year-old Javari ran away. He was upset over being suspended from school. Atlanta police launched a search, including using one of their helicopters, which goes by the nickname Phoenix. Amir says she heard the ambulances rushing to the scene.
My heart felt like it just stopped.
Javari was found safe a few hours later. As we speak, Atlanta police officers once again look over the scene and ask area businesses if surveillance cameras captured any of the crash. All Amir can do is stand and stare at the spot, heartbroken for the officers' families.
It'd be very important because they put their lives on the line, and it's not fair. They can't go home. I just feel so responsible for all of this.
Now, Amir says she's tried to explain to her 9-year-old son what happened and the fact they died as they're trying to search for him, but she says she doesn't think right now the impact has set in on him. She says she hopes it does at some point. Live in Northwest Atlanta, Tony Thomas, Channel 2 Action News.
This helicopter went down in the middle of a very busy intersection, and it is truly amazing that more lives were not lost in this. The chopper crashed at Hamilton E. Holmes Drive at Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, and there are a lot of businesses in this area, including a CVS pharmacy and a Wendy's restaurant on one side of the street, a strip mall just across the street, and a Chevron on the corner there. Witnesses say that they rushed over to help, but then they heard an explosion moments after impact. Some of them spent hours watching this investigation.
I noticed something falling out of the sky.
But I went to render aid because I didn't know who was in there at the time. And the closer I got, it did it once more. So I walked away.
Again, no one was hurt on the ground.
Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed emailed a statement to us on the loss of the two officers. It reads, "Our hearts and prayers are with the families of Officer Shawn Smiley and Officer Richard Halford on this difficult day in the city of Atlanta. The entire city stands with the families and the Atlanta Police Department during this time of grief. We also pause to extend our sympathy to the men and women of the police department who place their lives in harm's way every day to keep our city safe and who especially feel the pain of this loss." These are the second and third Atlanta police officers killed in the line of duty this year. The first was this officer, Gail Thomas, a 15-year veteran of the force. She was helping another officer back in January when a car hit her on the I-75 ramp to I-85. Police charged the driver, 22-year-old Chastity Jones, with vehicular homicide and DUI.
And today, many people are expressing condolences on our Facebook page as Atlanta mourns the loss of these two officers. There are more than 100 messages of support and prayers for the officers' families. You can also leave a message. Just go to facebook.com/WSBTV. And this afternoon, we also learned trust funds, as Eric mentioned, are now set up for the families of Officer Halford and Officer Smiley. Starting at noon tomorrow, you can make a donation through any Wells Fargo bank.
And be sure to stay with us for continuing coverage. We have several reporters and photographers working right now to gather new information. We will bring you any new developments during this newscast, including a live report in about 20 minutes. And look for updates around the clock on our website at WSBTV.com.
All right, we had some rain move through Metro